Hello, everybody. I'm just waiting until people are coming in. Please be patient with me. I don't know whether you can see me. I don't see myself. And please let me know whether you can hear me as well. Anyways, I am going to start and please put in the chat if you have any questions or comments. I will be uploading this onto YouTube. So please, if you have a very personal question, make it impersonal, if you know what I mean. So I will try not to mention your name as well if I answer a question. So please be aware that we will put this on YouTube. So if you don't want people to know about you attending this, don't ask your question live. So I know you have your camera on, but I don't see my camera. I don't know. Can you put in the chat whether you can see me or yes, drive safely, please. Yeah, so I'm assuming that you all can hear me and can see the screen. Can you please confirm that in the chat? Could you do that? Anyways, I assume that everything is well. So I want to welcome you. I felt very inspired. Thank you. Thank you. I felt very inspired to create this webinar. Why? Because I have really this was like a big blind spot for myself for many years. And so, and if I talk about many years, you will find out when I go into it. So I assume that most of you here are really, what I call the people who do the inner work. They're not the people that are, just wanting to find love, wanting to attract love without any awareness of their own patterns. And really, I really feel that the people that are attracted to the material that I put out, they know everything, and just like me, I knew everything. So how is it possible that so many of us are still struggling with love, and not just love, with manifesting soulmate love? Yeah. So that was my big question. And this is why I really wanted to create this specific webinar, also because there's a story behind it. So, what are the contents? The contents are actually about my own story. This is for you if you've been doing the work and you believe that everything is possible and you believe that you're committed, you're longing for a really important, beautiful relationship, but somehow you're stuck and you're just wondering, what am I doing? What is it that I'm not seeing? So basically, I will talk about how I found out about my invisible patterns after many years of work. There was a specific turn of events. So I will also explain that and how I then actually discovered that, wow, this is so invisible and literally you cannot see it by yourself. And then I actually created a model called the attraction mirror, which is a fun exercise that we can do. And that I will actually explain, when we look at my own experience. And then, of course, we'll also talk about this big topic, which is soulmates. Like, do they actually exist, or is it just for a few people? Is it dependent on your karma? Is it dependent on your astrology or human design or something? So, and then, of course, the story about me and my business partner, Elle, manifesting our soulmates at the same time when we were doing our clearing work for 6 months together. So, So that is the contents. I think I have around 52 slides. So, I will record it. So if you get sleepy, if you need to wake up early, please feel free to go and you can watch the recording. So the aim of this specific webinar is to inspire you, but also to not give you relationship advice or dating advice, because actually, when you watch this webinar, you will see that a lot of the questions that are answered by the dating coaches, the tactical dating coaches and relationship coaches, how to text him, whether I should call him back, whether I should get a divorce, they're all about the levels of consciousness that people are operating from. And when you can recognize the levels of consciousness, you can actually easily see the patterns, and you can then adjust the questions and your insights according to the level of consciousness that is deciphered in the pattern. Yeah. So, and this sounds a little bit cryptic, but I assure you, you will know what I mean. So, this is something that is so heart-opening to me, this specific sentence. In the field of infinite possibility, there is a possibility for everything that you want, even your soulmate. Plus, they already exist. I can tell you that I didn't believe that. I hope that it was true, but my body definitely didn't believe it. My body was wired in survival. I had severe anxious attachment. So if you're sitting here and you're thinking, oh, I don't know whether I believe, no worries, because I was there. And my business partner, Elle, was also there. We also didn't believe. Yeah. So, but when we go further, you will see why we knew that we had to be the scientist in our own lives, meaning we were not going to let our programming and our conditioning determine for us what was possible, because we were in a community where we saw people manifest everything, manifest, big venture capital deals, manifest, getting, even growing a thyroid, manifest, dream jobs, manifest becoming financially free. So we were like, hey, what is going on? Are we limiting ourselves? Well, we knew that we were limiting ourselves. So we had to find out. So I want to actually go into a few definitions, because I think when I say invisible patterns, it is important that you really have to know that probably there's something going on in your life, like it was in mine, that you cannot see. Yeah. So invisible means incapable by nature of being seen, not perceptible by vision, inaccessible to view, so it's hidden. So it's almost like, I'm not a really big Harry Potter fan, but imagine that this thing is sitting next to you, even like following you all around, but it has like an invisible cloak. Like literally everybody sees it, or maybe other people see it, but you cannot see it. Yeah, it's hidden, or it's even like a lot of people don't even know about it. Like, like how does the universe operate? Like, how do we jump time and quantum jump timelines? And how do we travel back in time and all of those things? How do some people have near-death experiences? Like, there's a lot of mysteries in the world. They're not openly acknowledged or made known to us. We're just grasping the mystery, right? Or it's actually so mysterious that we're not able to recognize it or identify it, even if it's in front of us. Yeah. So, so imagine that these are the things that we're talking about in your life, where you are efforting a lot, you're really trying to create something, but it's not happening. Yeah. So, when we look at pattern, what is a pattern? Pattern are the invisible scripts that run our lives. The habitual meaning you don't have to think about it, they just happen like this. They happen even before you think about them. They're there, the thoughts, beliefs, behaviors that we repeat, and they're so automatic that we don't even realize it. They repeat all the time. We maybe see them even repeating in our ancestors, in our culture, or in our subgroup. And it is seen as a normal or regular way in which something happens or is done. So definitely, if we look at love, you can see in every culture, or maybe in your family, you will see certain patterns repeating. And those of you who know that I studied family constellations, that I facilitate workshops in that, you will see that we look for patterns. Tony Robbins also says the biggest skill that we need to learn is to recognize patterns and then to utilize them and then to actually really control the patterns and create something with the pattern. So if we don't see the patterns, then we're just basically trying to control the outside world, whereas we actually are so powerful, we can actually control our own patterns. But because they're invisible, it's a little bit hard. So, from a neuroscientific perspective, I was asking why did I know everything, just like my business partner? Why did we know everything? We had done so much work on ourselves, and then together we were doing a lot of work. Why was it invisible? So basically, this is the answer. Your nervous system activates survival mode under stress. And if you are in relationships that are stressful to you, that are, triggering all your wounding, triggering all your allergies, you will literally go to the amygdala. The amygdala in your brain gets activated, and you do not even see patterns. Literally, you're just in survival mode. You're just in fight, flight, freeze, or I think there's a fourth one. So basically, your prefrontal cortex literally goes offline. So the neuroscience shows that what we can perceive depends on our internal state. And if we're dysregulated, we don't see patterns, they become invisible, and we repeat what will keep us safe. So we cannot even see ourselves. So imagine that you do this. So literally, you need somebody else to see what's going on. Yeah. So the neural hijacking is the prefrontal cortex that can actually observe, think rationally, see patterns, and can actually, steer us away to actually, do something more emotionally intelligent. That goes offline when we're in stressful situations in relationships. And so and when you look at the prefrontal cortex, it's about self-reflection, self-awareness, impulse regulation, which is very difficult when we're in stressful relationships, long-term perspective, thinking, am I gonna, send a I hate you text or scream at a person, or am I gonna think about who's the person that I want to become, or basically the ability to make conscious choices. So when we are in these stressful relationships or stressful anything, our brain doesn't use the prefrontal cortex. It goes to the survival systems. And so this is why we believe that we can manifest everything, but if our patterns stay in those survival systems, what are the chances that we can raise our awareness to the level where we are a vibrational match to soulmate love? And so I know that I wanted to discuss with you whether we actually believe in soulmates. Like, I knew about it, I read books about it, but I can tell you that I wasn't really aware of what it was. I was reading the books from Edgar Cayce because he's a sleeping prophet and he channeled about soulmates. And so, but I also found the books of a woman called Catherine Ellis, and she worked with Michael Bernard Beckwith in the Agape Center in the crisis support area for many years. And she specialized in helping people manifest soulmate love for many, many years. And even like in 2012 or something, I already knew about her books, but I was just reading her books, but I wasn't ready to really do it. And then I was really fascinated by what she said, which is everybody has a soulmate. All of us have a soulmate. Everybody. Nobody is excluded. So this is something that I always kept in the back of my mind. And so when I was really ready, I was like, okay, I need to find out whether this is true. And if you see her YouTube channel, she has a channel where there's all these pictures behind her with all her clients being engaged or being married. So for me, she was very authentic. And I read her books and I really tried to make it my own. And so when you look at her definition is a soulmate is simply somebody you're deeply compatible with on a soul level. soul level, not ego level, where love feels easy, mutual, and natural. Soulmate relationship feels like coming home, not like winning a battle. So, and I know that most of you here, because you've done so much work, you are not going to settle for anything that is hard work. You're not going to settle for anything that is soul destroying, that is making you feel like you're having to do all the work and the other person is not interested. You're not interested in a relationship where you have to beg, where you have to chase, where you have to compromise. Yeah. So basically, this is what Elle and I, both of us manifested at the same time after doing our clearing work. So the sequence of things is if you look at Elle and I, we were business partners. I had a download during a Dr. Joe retreat that I had to work with Elle. I didn't really even know her, but I know that I can trust my downloads and that the divine is giving me guidance. And so Elle and I created a community for accountability in terms of applying the manifestation and universal laws. So not just knowing it, not just studying it, not just discussing it, but actually applying it. It was accountability, meaning if you didn't do certain things, you would be thrown out, even if you paid. So the people were super, all our community were really like, when they joined, they were committed. And we saw so many people manifesting things. We saw people heal relationships, turn around divorces, fall in love with their husband that they hated for 19 years, manifest inheritances even before people died, turn around businesses, manifest flow in their business, even though it was lockdown. Manifest 6 month target like for business in 1 month. So we really knew that, everything is possible. But we, in 2020, when we were running these classes, we were struggling in love. And the normal, cycle of love, right? You have the infatuation, honeymoon, and then comes the power struggle. And that is what we're talking about. We're talking about the patterns that show up in the power struggle. So Elle and I were seeing all these miracles happen in our classes and with our clients, which really inspired us. And of course, we've never seen it because we were just working with downloads. We're like, okay, divine, tell us what we need to do. And then we implemented it. And then we saw all these things changing for our clients. So we knew we were guided, but at the same time, our relationships were very, very difficult, and we were fighting, we were arguing. It was very insecure, very, we were with men who were very, let's say, uncommitted, or they didn't want to grow. So we were feeling like we weren't walking the talk. So we spoke to each other and we said, hey, we need to walk the talk. Let's look at all our patterns. Let's look at all our patterns. Yeah, so you can see us here with all the classes that we run and the events that we ran, and beautiful community, beautiful people. And then we were single for a while, and in those 6 months in 2020, I was ghosted by a man that I manifested with mind movies. So, and she broke up with a specific man because he wasn't going to be the right person for her desire of having a beautiful family. And we basically said we're going to do the clearing together. So both of us did clearings, but we also had accountability and we also did manifestation rituals. We were really, really applying all the laws on our own life. Yeah. So I think here you look at this picture, we were in a park somewhere in Amsterdam and we were literally doing like a cacao ceremony. Yeah, these are all pictures from when we were both still single. And we can be single and super happy, but we knew this was a pain point in our life. This was a pain point in our life, and we were not going to not look at it because this struggle that we had in our lives where we can manifest everything except soulmate love, we were just curious. We were like, what can we achieve? So actually, when you look at this picture, we were actually in a hotel giving thanks for our future lives because we really believe in this, feeling it real, celebrating it before it happens. We were in a beautiful hotel. This was actually, I think, maybe like 1 or 2 weeks before I met my husband, and we were meditating together. And I remember that when I was meditating then, that I was feeling so much gratitude because we had done so much healing work that I really felt for the first time that soulmate love was possible. And I cried during that meditation. And I'm not a crybaby. I sometimes cry when I'm at a retreat with Dr. Joe and we have these beautiful walking meditations and you're so grateful for life. But this was just in a hotel and it was just me and Elle. And I was crying tears of gratitude because I felt maybe this is possible. And I think something shifted because if I look back in astrology with me and my husband, that was the same time that something shifted for him in his astrology. So I will do master classes about all the crazy synchronicities that happen once you are a vibrational match. But I want to share with you that, we didn't do the work like once a week or once a month. We did it every day. And also because I was having severe panic attacks, I was severely depressed. I was really wanting this ex-boyfriend back because I was really feeling ashamed of him ghosting me. I made it all about me. I said, well, there must be something wrong with me. So I just have to change and he will come back. But anyways, luckily he didn't come back because if I look back now, when the stars aligned or when I was a vibrational match and Elle was a vibrational match through a series of crazy synchronicities that are better than a rom-com. And we believe that we will one day be a Netflix series, by the way. It was so magical, all the things that happened for Elle to meet Mit, the father of her beautiful twins, and for me to meet, and also the guidance for me to meet my husband, Thomas. Yeah. So if I can tell you that my angels had to yell in my ear for 2 days before I was willing to go online dating, then you know what I mean with there is a guidance in your life, and actually you need to trust that guidance. But although I was healing myself, I wasn't feeling ready. I wasn't really ready to meet anybody because all I could remember was this man ghosted me and I manifested him. Am I ready to do this? But the angels were yelling so loud in my ears for 2 days that I literally said, okay, I'm going to go online. And within one day, I met Thomas. And it was so, so clear that he was very, very special. So we manifested our men after 6 months around the last, between 5 and 6 months of us working together and having accountability together. And then what happened was that this was in 2020, so this is now 2020, and in 2025, I kept getting dreams from my angels. I'm always guided, yeah. So, and my angels kept sending me dreams about ex-boyfriends, and I was like, I'm sleeping to my beautiful man who really loves me. Why am I dreaming about these ex-boyfriends? And to be funny enough, these were ex-boyfriends that ghosted me, that literally treated me like I was garbage. But in the dreams, 3 in a row, these ex-boyfriends were completely in love with me, wanted to marry me, wanted to be committed to me. So this is why the dreams were so shocking. I was like, but this was not at all reality. In reality, they treated me like garbage. They treated me like I was nobody. Yeah. And I was so heartbroken by these men. But actually, when the third dream came, and 3 days in a row, I thought, okay, wait a minute. This is nothing to do with these men. This is the angels giving me a sign. And the sign is that I need to teach this, that I have jumped timelines. I am no longer in the timeline of attracting these men that are going to treat me like I am nobody. I'm now in the timeline where men, when I attract them, when I select them, when I invite them in, they are soulmate level love. Yeah. So so I forgot about this. I was really inspired. I was like, "Oh, thank you, angels. I'm going to do something about it." Then, of course, I got distracted because I always have many things that I think are fun. And then, funny enough, last year I went into a hotel that I chose. We were traveling to Frankfurt for Thomas's work, and as I came into the hotel, I felt really drawn to go to this, they had a huge lounge. So I went to this specific corner of this huge lounge, and specifically there was a huge book, and the book was about, it had the name Anima. And for me, this inner work around the inner lover, anima animus, is the key, is the blind spot of so many people. So tonight we're going to talk about that. So this is how the angels are guiding me. So let's go back to what are soulmates? Yeah, if you look at me and Elle and our history, so this we didn't have this type of relationship. It was always a struggle. It was always like heartbreak. It was always power struggle. It was always blaming each other because there was so much that wasn't right. But if you are a vibrational match to your soul, you are a vibrational match to soulmate level love. And if you look at soulmate level love and what are the attributes and characteristics of our soul, love flows instead of being forced. Attraction and emotional safety exist at the same time. So it's not just attraction and, oh my God, when is he going to call me back? And oh my God, maybe he's with somebody else. And why is he on another dating platform? I thought we were exclusive. No, it's attraction and emotional safety and consistency at the same time. We don't have to prove ourselves, chase or struggle. We feel chosen, and it's very, very clear. This man wants us and he doesn't want anybody else. And we choose them back. The relationship supports your growth, peace, and joy. This is coming from Catherine Ellis. So if you want to know who she is, I decided last year that I had to be certified by her as a love attraction coach because I really know that a person that can help so many people find love, there's something special around their consciousness. Yeah. And also, I manifested my husband 4 years in 2020 before I trained with Catherine. So once I was inside a soulmate relationship and Elle was in a soulmate relationship, I recognized that love could be easy, reciprocal, and unforced and supportive. There was no chasing, no fighting, no ambiguity, no emotional roller coaster, none of the friction that characterizes karmic relationships. Yeah. And karmic relationships appear in your life when you have lessons to learn and you haven't learned them, you haven't mastered them. And so these beautiful men or women or bosses or, scammers come into your life so that you can learn those lessons. And those of you who've seen my Kabbalah presentation, these are angels, these karmic relationships, these karmic teachers, they come to help you cleanse your negativity. They come to help you learn a lesson, but they're not soulmate material. So if you understand that my perception of love was so difficult, so me and Elle had a really difficult, also from our families, very difficult relationships. Well, was it even wise to trust men? Yeah. I mean, it wasn't even safe to trust men in our family. So basically, when you look at how we turned it around and we literally manifested the type of soulmate love that Catherine was teaching about, I was like, okay, I need to study with her because when I reread her work, I realized that she was describing exactly what I and Elle were living. Her teachings or her books and what she's teaching weren't aspirational or ideals. They weren't like, oh, wishful thinking. They described the truth that Elle and I were living because she was writing the books, but because I hadn't lived it, it felt like it didn't click with me. Do you see what I mean? Because if you only know suffering and love and you're reading about soulmate love, you're like, I don't get it. Because you're still longing for this man who ghosted you. You're still longing for this man who is unavailable to choose you. Yeah, that was my reality. But once I had done all the work and I read about soulmate relationships, I thought this is true. This is so true. Everything that she describes is true. Why would you settle for any type of love if you could go for soulmate love? But the work that we have to do, that is what we're going to talk about. So I chose to train with her because she put the framework around the truth that I had had already experienced for 4 years. Soulmate love is not the same as other types of relationships. So, becoming a certified love attraction coach with Catherine was a very conscious choice because, like, why would I need another certification? But I wanted to entangle myself with the consciousness that she is working with, the consciousness that matches the timelines and quantum potentials of soulmate love. So I'm working with her now. I'm in her accountability group, and I have to tell you, I hear her voice, just like some of you hear Dr. Joe, or maybe you hear Abraham Hicks. I hear Catherine's voice when I talk about soulmate, yeah? And with a soulmate, so for you, I hope to inspire you. With a soulmate, this is absolutely possible for you. It's easy. So some people think, oh, easy, is that boring? No, no, not boring, easy. The right person doesn't really activate your anxiety or your triggers or power struggles. So basically, that is what I mean with easy. Even if there is something going on, you will, because you have elevated to the level of your soulmate partner will also be at that same level. So conflicts, they get resolved very quickly. Even if it was something that you would say, oh, this is a big issue, it resolves so quickly. And I mean, I've never seen that happen with me and any boyfriend or any partner. Yeah. So, but with Thomas and also with Ellen Mead, I can see how big things can happen, but somehow this person can hold it and can contain it, and you grow together. So struggles are not a reason to leave each other or to say, oh, this can't happen. See, it's your fault. No, you actually somehow, because of the level of consciousness that you're in and that they're in, you find a solution together. Yeah. It's mutual. You don't love, you don't wait, you don't hope. The energy is reciprocal, which was always lacking in a way in my relationships. I was always more into men than they were into me. And if a man was into me, I wasn't really into them. You know that game. And also with a soulmate relationship, Catherine's theory is that the relationship will not fail. You cannot mess it up. And probably some of you have seen the video where I actually told my husband, Thomas, in the beginning, I told him my pattern is within 3 to 6 months, I will sabotage this relationship. Just wait and see. And he said, you can do that, but I will not leave. And literally, he didn't leave. Even if I tried to sabotage, even if I tried to do something, even if, one of these patterns showed up, he wouldn't leave. Because a soulmate, you have such a specific contract with a soulmate person that you can be yourself, even if that means you have a tantrum or you go into the wounded part of you. This soulmate person is here to stay. Yeah. So this is what I've seen from both me and Elle because she's a really close friend of mine. I think we're even connected on a soul level, meaning like maybe we were once the same soul or something. So we're very close, we're very telepathic with each other. So really, really, it's very, very special to see it for both of us who were coming from such a history of difficult, traumatic relationships. Yeah. With a soulmate, you feel relief. It brings a sense of relief. You're not like tense all the time. Like if you know that I've had panic attacks all my life with relationships, then you can understand that at the time that I healed myself and then I cleared all my levels of consciousness that were blocking my soul, that when I was ready to be more aligned with my own soul, then you can attract that soul in. So I am not saying that the soulmate love will bring you the sense of relief. You have to practice that in yourself first. So Elle and I really understand that the reality is a mirror. Reality is an exact mirror of our consciousness. So we had to become like the relationship and the person that we wanted to attract before we could attract it. But the person that we attracted, they are definitely not triggering people. They are like grounded, secure, stable, consistent. There's no mystery. There's no question marks, right? And if you confront them with anything, you can feel that they're speaking the truth. Also, what Catherine really teaches in her books is that you are wanted as you are. So basically, she will say, imagine that you're obese or that you have a big disease or that you have like you're balding or something is going on where you don't feel attractive. Your soulmate doesn't care. Your soulmate will want you exactly as you are. You don't need to heal yourself before heal yourself 1000% before they're interested in you. Your soulmate, when they're ready to come in, when you're ready to come in, they will literally be there for you and it will help you grow. There's actually a very beautiful anecdote that I have because when I was clearing myself, I was doing it amongst others with Theta Healing. And one of my mastermind partners, Daniel, he basically did a reading for me very shortly before, just a few days before I met Thomas. And I still wasn't feeling ready, right? Because I was so identified with this body of stress and tension, and I'm going to be abandoned, I'm going to be rejected again. Why would I even do it? And Daniel said to me, you don't have to be completely healed to manifest your soulmate. Because the next person that you're going to manifest, he's actually really, really powerful and he's going to heal you. Yeah. And this is exactly what Thomas is, So, and I'm sure that in a way, Mid is also healing L, but we are also healing these men, for whatever reason. So so, what is the invisible lens? Yeah. What is your invisible lens? Your consciousness. Because your consciousness is the lens through which love reveals itself, first in you and then in the quantum field. Yeah. What is the chicken and the egg? Is it first us or is it the quantum field? Well, because we are deliberate creators, we can change it. And when we change our consciousness, the quantum field has to reflect it back to us. Yeah. So I created this fun chart after I joined a specific mastermind for business owners because I realized that there was a fun way to actually find out what's going on in your love life. So I thought, what if we would have a vertical line that depicts your consciousness, your level of consciousness, and the horizontal line would depict how much you're attracted to somebody. I called it the attraction mirror, and I thought it was super funny. So I will show you using this attraction mirror what was going on in my love life. Yeah. So I always use the David Hawkins scale because I studied it. I had a download even in 2015 that I had to study the David Hawkins scale and it really changed my life. I use it with everything. And literally, you can see here that there's a red line here at courage 200. And I will explain later why that is. So if you look at everything below 200, we call that the force zone. Because in this specific level of consciousness, we are always having to force for outcomes. And guess where most people live? Guess where most dating tactics come from? Guess where most people are living in, specific patterns that they can't even see. And I have to tell you, I was manifesting everything. I was really obsessed with manifesting. I was manifesting a lot of things from a very high level of consciousness, but in my love life, I was here for decades and I couldn't see it. So I want you to be super honest about where you are. Because if you're here, the patterns will be that you have this soulmate level love fantasy in your head, but actually, you're sitting there with a broken heart, thinking about people that really broke your heart or that really betrayed you or cheated on you or abandoned you or who couldn't meet you. Yeah. So this was me. Yeah. I had this very beautiful dream in my heart, and every time it was not, I wasn't met. That dream didn't come true. And to be honest, as long as we're here in the force zone, we cannot manifest this specific beautiful fairy tale love. It is just not possible. And I will tell you why later. Yeah. Um, I'm not sure. I'm trying to go to the next slide. Oh, wait. So I need to do this. Yeah. So somehow it didn't work. So I'm trying to make this. How do I do the full screen? Oh gosh. Anyway, so basically, this is the next slide. What is going on that we cannot see what's going on? It has to do with the inner partner, the inner beloved. Jung calls it the anima or the animus. This was the book that was in front of me in this hotel. Yeah. That was a little reminder of, hello, do you know that you need to teach this? And so basically, we do not fall in love with real people. We fall in love with how well they match our inner template, our inner ideal. When someone triggers our animus or anima, you feel that spark, that instant recognition. But the trap is you're projecting your own unconscious qualities onto them rather than seeing who they actually are. So maybe you do not see that for yourself, but I want you to think about how when you have a boy band, yeah, you have a boy band, and you have all these teenage girls going crazy. Like, I don't know which band it was. It was one band, like they broke up or something, and how many girls were crying on TikTok. Like, we're talking about that type of phenomena. Well, definitely I had it too. I had it with Prince. I really wanted to I wanted to marry Prince. Imagine that. But any person that triggers something in us in terms of spark is actually telling you something about your animus anima. We're not just talking about positive spark, we're also talking about negative spark, yeah? So because Jung's model, because he was the one who came up with this model, he says that your ego consciousness sees the person that is the persona or what they want you to see, but the actual attraction is happening in the subconscious level, and that is where his anima is in love with you, but actually his anima has unfinished business with women like you because his subconscious still has stuff around specific women that you in your subconscious can out, relive with him. Yeah. So there's actually diagrams in the Jungian world, and I don't have time for it now, but I just want you to understand that this is a specific dynamic. So what is going on? So basically, when we're in these lower levels of consciousness in the fourth zone, under 200, we are not conscious enough. Yeah, because we're in the levels of consciousness where we are actually not we are not aware of our patterns because we haven't looked at them. Most people, even the most conscious spiritual people, some of them are still in pride. Pride is, I think, for spiritual people, the biggest problem. And I will explain that, in another class. But that is where Elle and I see a lot of people go wrong and where we saw ourselves go wrong, of course, because we learn it because we made a mistake. But imagine that when we're in the force zone, we literally are we don't see the real person. We're just seeing things through our lens, and the love chemicals come in because there's all this projection of our ideal on this person that we often don't even know. Those of you who know about all these love scammers, right? These love scammers that are always texting these vulnerable people and then taking all their pension. I mean, this is a classic animus, anima projection stuff because you are in your own little virtual reality. You don't see the real person. And then, of course, when people confront them, this person scammed you, they don't exist. They actually are in this specific country. They're not in the country where you think they are. They can't even believe it. And so this is how invisible things can be. But because you're here, I can imagine that you're probably not there anymore and you want to get out of it. So I want you to see that when we have the lens on, we're literally looking through a rose-colored glasses, yeah? We only want to see the fairy tale, yeah? But of course, we also know like that there's other factors. So for me, for instance, I am very, very much going in, looking into astrology now, also looking at my clients when I work with them. The astrology speaks volumes, yeah? And if you look at my astrology, and if you're an astrologer and you see Neptune to Mars in Sagittarius, Neptune is not a good planet to have in any type of area, especially love, because Neptune is fog. Neptune is big lessons in terms of fog and clarity. And I had this in my love life. So if you want to look at your astrology, maybe there will be signs where there is lack of clarity or power struggles or lack of safety or lack of self-worth. You could have Neptune, you could have Saturn, you could have Pluto or Chiron. If any of these planets are in your relationship houses or in the aspects of where you are emotionally touched or where you have to relate to people or come from your own wordiness, you can see big signs in terms of what is going on. So literally, if this Neptune to Mars configuration really was screwing up my clarity for a really, really long time. And it says here, I approach relationship as I hope they could be. Yeah. I mean, this is not soulmate relationship. This is really hope. Yeah. Hoping that this person will love you back, hoping that they will change, hoping that if you earn their love, that they will stay with you. Soulmate love, you don't have to do any of that. You don't have to do anything and they love you. Yeah. So also for me, it was looking for fulfillment in someone else. So not in myself, but in somebody else. I was looking for it outside of me. This is also a big pattern in love or in career. And fantasizing that they'll come along and save you. That was my pattern because I was looking for the prince to come and save me. Can be hard for you to see your partners clearly, leading to codependent or even toxic situations. Well, I can write a book about it, and this is why I think Netflix one day will create a series about it because it is very, very interesting, all the stuff that has happened in my life before I met Thomas and before I was working with Elle to turn this around. So, so, so what was going on? So maybe you're thinking, hey, what's going on with the invisible lover within myself? So you could have a wounded lover inside. So if your animus or anima is immature or wounded, you will keep attracting them because you have unfinished business with them. And you're only magnetizing those type of people to you because you have this specific lesson to learn with them. Yeah. So unless we have healed our animus, and we've seen it as part of us, why we're attracting certain people in our lives, we will keep attracting it. So a lot of people say, oh, he's a narcissist. My father was a narcissist. Well, actually, the bad news is that the narcissist is also within you. If it was in your family, definitely there's a narcissist within you that you need to heal. So in my family, the men were not very loyal to their wives. They were cheating on their wives. They were betraying their wives. Um, um, and so this is why, although I was in victim consciousness for a very, very long time, when I really decided I am going to heal the inner man in me, the man that cheats, the man that betrays, when I did that work wholeheartedly, that's how I healed and that's how I could attract a whole man into my life. So yeah, so what is going on under 200? Yeah, we have to kiss a lot of frogs. The only problem is that Alison Armstrong, a person that I really, really admire, she wrote a book where she says that she wrote many books. She also trains people, where she said that some women or girls are frog farmers, meaning they can turn a prince into a frog. Frog farmers, you can turn a prince into a frog. And when I was masterminding with several of my Tony Robbins male coaches, my peers, they actually explained to me how they wanted to be a prince and a king, but the consciousness or the behavior of this woman made them turn into a frog. And it's not a justification. It's the same as you want to be a queen, but certain men act in a certain way, and then you become a witch, right? So this is the same dynamic, yeah? So from this level of consciousness, nothing good can happen. So the only thing that can happen is really like you're haunted by your by your history, and sometimes if you look in the family history, it's also the family history, the ancestral patterns, and it's yeah, a lot of heartbreak, yeah, a lot of archetypal heartbreak. And especially if there is shadow work to be done, especially the negative animus anima, so the cheater, the perpetrator, the liar, the person that you cannot trust. If you have those type of things happening in your love life or in your family life, you have to clear that in yourself. Yeah, because if you haven't owned these qualities, then you will attract that into your life because you are so resisting it, but it's part of your wholeness. So you will have to learn how to come to peace with it. And there are rituals for that. I led a course called Meeting the Lovers Within. That was my first course I ever ran, and that's the next course that I'm going to be running. So this is really about, us owning those negative qualities. Soulmate level love is only possible when we meet ourselves deeply. Because as you can see, relationships are not about another person. They reflect our consciousness. And if we have disowned certain parts in our subconscious mind, especially about what the lover is, the man outside of us, the partner, and they are still entangled with the negative animus or the wounded animus or anima, then it's very difficult for us to actually go out there and attract healthy love, yeah? Because we still have to heal that. So this is why now you can actually go into the world, and when you see people heartbroken or disheartened and cycles repeat, it's almost 1000% that they are operating from the levels of consciousness under 200, the fourth zone. And yeah, a lot of people actually stay here and they believe that I can do everything in life except love. Yeah. And I was there for a long time because it took me a long time before I met Elle, and Elle and I said, no, we have to experiment. We have to find out whether we are doomed. Imagine that I even had a psychic in Hong Kong when I was very young tell me that I would never be with my soulmate love. I would be in my deathbed and look back and I would have missed the big love. Yeah. So that was one timeline that I was in. But I didn't accept the timeline because, thanks God, I listened to Abraham Hicks, I listened to Catherine Ellis, I listened to Dr. Joe Dispenza. There must be a quantum potential. I wasn't going to go into that timeline. Even my mentor, Catherine Ellis, she had a psychic tell her that she wouldn't be with a soulmate love, but she was stubborn. She was like, no, I don't believe that. And she manifested her soulmate husband. So I really want you to think about, if you're feeling soulmate love is impossible, just know that you're just here, and that is not the whole map. In this specific zone, the fourth zone, this is where all the pain happens. And where we need to go, you need to go to the power zone. But a lot of people stay stuck in the power zone. A lot of people. I was there. I was flipping in and out between force and power. Yeah. And because when Elle and I were dissecting what we did together and what was happening with us before and after we did the work, we realized that a lot of people either stay here or they stay here, but because they're not understanding the initiations to go into the receiving zone, they are always stuck here. And this is the level where you're learning lessons still with karmic teachers. And it's less painful. These karmic teachers are not as horrible as the ones here, but they're still not on the level of the soul. Yeah, they are just here to help you graduate. That is what we've seen because we've been really been dissecting people that were our clients, and really understanding the when people step into the receiving zone. So what we realized is that when people are stuck here in the power zone, they have a lot of invisible red flags in themselves, We had a lot of invisible red flags in ourselves. But of course, when people are here, they're only looking outside of them. They're blaming outside of them. And I was the same. So, so this is where you can see, wait a minute, I'm the invisible red flag. If I am here in this level of consciousness, there's lots of patterns where I am the invisible red flag. So how can you recognize the force zone invisible red flags? It's victim consciousness. It's always the other person. This other person is doing this to me, and they should be healed, they should be fixed, and they should change. Like I hear myself talking, this was me, yeah. Even though I was so conscious, this was how I was feeling and how I was thinking. I was literally blaming my boyfriends. It was always them, it was never me. And of course, that's victim separation consciousness. Men are, women are not understanding that I always attract my vibrational match, even if it's my vibrational match in the subconscious mind. Yeah. So, and also I separate myself from infinite possibilities. I couldn't believe in soulmate love. I couldn't believe in my healing. I couldn't heal myself. I needed you to fix yourself, heal yourself, change your behavior so that I could heal. Yeah. I didn't see the oneness between this person is literally a mirror to what I'm not healing in myself or where I am resisting change in myself. Lack consciousness. How often have I not thought I'm too old? There's not enough conscious men of this specific spiritual or emotional intelligence scale around in the world. Yeah, that's lack consciousness. Also, lack consciousness is believing that the world is the 3D circumstances you live in. The world is not the 3D circumstances you live in. The world is dependent on the timeline that you're operating from, because there was a timeline that I would be in bed and I would never be with my soulmate love. And this was the psychic that I knew when I was in my late 20s. Yeah. So it took me another 20 years to prove her wrong. But, I hope that with the knowledge that I've gathered together with Elle, it doesn't have to, yeah, be that long for people that we work with. Yeah. So in the fourth zone, you really need to understand that when you see the patterns in your love life repeating there in the fourth zone, you need to see that your perception is limited and you will feel doubt, you'll feel resistance and skepticism. You will not believe that you can heal it. It's normal because that is the hallmark of the fourth zone. That is who everybody is in the fourth zone. And believing in possibility, even that soulmate love is real for you or for anybody, can feel unrealistic or unsafe. So if you're triggered by it, just know that there is something in you that is still wired in the fourth zone, and that is a real big clue for you to what you need to work on. So it is important that though Elle and I were like really good in manifesting, because we were obsessed about manifesting, we believed in infinite possibilities and timelines 6 years ago, but we did not feel or really believe that we had a soulmate or that we could even attract one. Yeah. And why is this important to know? Because in the fourth zone, we were in our old self. The old self doubts possibility. But we knew we were operating because we were teaching the map, the David Hawkins scale. We knew where we were. So we knew we were operating from the fourth zone. And the fourth zone is like a fish underwater thinking water is the only thing that there is. Yeah. We knew that we were the fish underwater or an animal that is in underground that doesn't believe that there's a sky. Yeah. We knew that we were operating from a consciousness that was very limited. So we committed to expanding ourselves daily and rewiring ourselves daily, clearing ourselves daily, so that we could embody our soul's true identity. Because this identity that we called Elle or Angelique that was suffering so much, we knew that we weren't that person. So the most empowering realization for all of you here is, I hope, is that you know that the invisible patterns are not fixed traits. They are just expressions of certain levels of consciousness. Your relationships are a mirror to the level of awareness you're operating from. So if you're higher, you will have other challenges. You will not have as much heartache, but maybe you still haven't cracked the code of the initiations of the power zone into the receiving zone. And I will talk about that later. So there's nothing wrong with you, and we can all change. when we evolve our consciousness. So if you know that you're here, then you know you need to go up. Yeah. So this frog or witch can still show up when you're in the higher levels of consciousness. Yeah. So once you're in courage, once you're above courage, you literally are on a higher level of consciousness, but cannot receive, you cannot be, you're not a vibrational match until you're at 350. That is what I've seen with my clients, where I always work with groups, and I can see when people start manifesting synchronicities and things coming to them, they become the vortex, they are the magnet. Everything under 350 is where people are still having to learn lessons. Yeah. So basically, what you have here in the higher levels of consciousness, people believe in possibility, but they might still have this frog farming tendency in them, because a lot of people, and you probably will recognize it now that I tell you, a lot of people are here in this spiritual practice with friends and with money and with career, but as soon as they're in love life, they have these blinders on. Yeah. The blinders where they go boom in projection. And this is why it's very important that you know how we're projecting, how we are feeling attraction to certain types of people, men or women, yeah, or how some of them repel us, or we just feel bored and we don't feel any chemistry, yeah. So when and of course you also have the other one, which is people are here and they are in these high levels of consciousness, and they have these idealized prince on the white horse. And this is another pattern that I see with a lot of spiritual people, because I think I was one of them, and I see it with a lot of my single girlfriends. My single girlfriends spend a lot of money on consciousness, and a lot of them are here, which is they have an idealized animus or anima. Your inner beloved or your inner partner is an idealized composite, so superhumans. So, of course, I was in love with Christopher Reeve when I was a little girl. Hey, Superman, Christopher Reeve. So he became part of my idealized animus. But then, I also have spiritual gurus. Yeah, Dr. Joe, Tony Robbins, those type of people, Greg Braden. And so when you have this idealized animus anima, and you put them on a pedestal, you cannot really, you see it, you're going to match every person you meet with that idealized animus anima. And this is happening for men, but it's also happening for women. And it's like it has different outcomes in both sides, but it means that people are not falling in love or even getting to know the real person in front of them. Yeah. So when you start to work with the inner lovers, the lovers within, then you can see all your projections, you dismantle them, and you can see with clarity, you can see yourself with clarity, because the animus anima tells you more about yourself than about the other person. Yeah. And so when I'm going to run that course in February, it's going to be very super interactive. You're going to learn a lot about how these archetypes, these inner beloved, how they show up in your life and how they blind you, how it happens for men, how it happens for women, so that you are much more aware of what's going on. So what is important to know, and of course you already know this now, you cannot be a vibrational match for soulmate love while operating from the consciousness of your wounds, your patterns, your projections, your personality. You can only be a vibrational match when we go to soulmate level love. And soulmate level love is after 350. Yeah. Because when we were working with the groups, we could see that a lot of people, they were here, but in the areas where they wanted to manifest change, they were here. Yeah. So you could literally be spending millions of dollars. We had a lot of therapists and coaches also working with us. Yeah. Lots of really like educated people that were teachers and leaders themselves, but they still had habitual patterns that were here. And when they were working with us, because it was an accountability framework, and in a group, they literally had to create habits that put them here. And then over time, their habits were so aligned with what I call the soulmate level frequency of the receiving zone, that some of them really started manifesting like crazy. And when I say manifesting from crazy, we're talking about things that are not done by force. It's like something magical happens. It's like a telepathy or something. People show up, big deals show up, all these things. Thank you. I'll see you later. Yeah, we're almost done, by the way. So what do we do in the work that I do with groups? Because I teach you how to recognize these patterns. I teach you how to get out of them. We have a series of very simple, what we call micro alignment habits that we teach you so that you can rewire yourself to get out of the force zone and first ground yourself in the power zone, even in areas where you've been struggling for a long time. And then after you rewired yourself in the power zone, you're much more able to actually understand who you really are. And then when you understand you are not the patterns that are in the force zone, you become much more aligned with a new vision of you. And when you make these new habits habitual, these new alignment habits habitual, then before you know it, you can slip into the receiving zone. And in the receiving zone, you are in the flow. You are in the wave of fortune, as they would call in the reality transurfing. You are in the zone of miracles, blessings, synchronicities. Yeah. And this is exactly what happened to me and Elle. And we didn't know what we were doing. We were just doing what we had to do. So if you want to know where you are, you can look at the results in your love life or your business life or, your health. It's all the same. Your results in your life provides all the clues about the love archetype identity in your life. I actually created a love archetype assessment. One day I will be able to share that with you guys. It's just 80% done. It took me a lot of time, but you will be able to see where you are, whether you're in the force zone, which is struggle, pain, conflict, or whether you're in the power zone, where you have a lot of growth and lessons. And the problem is because nobody has dissected this the way that I did it, because I was living all the pain and I had to do it right. I had to get myself out of there. I understand now what the growth and lessons and initiations are in the power zone. And the power zone is a area where a lot of people go to therapy. Yeah. So the therapy zone is the power zone. A lot of people stay here forever. And then if it doesn't work out, they have a divorce and they go in here and they say, "Oh my God, I tried to get out of here and now we're in therapy and why is it not working?" And so basically, the power zone is not enough. We are initiated by life to go into the receiving zone. And the initiations are very, very, yeah, they are quite difficult because they are not easy lessons. But once you know what they are, you will think, hey, wait a minute, I will have to learn this life or in another life. I might as well learn it this life. And so, yeah, so today is not the time for me to go deep into all these initiations because I want to just make you curious. I want to inspire you. But what I can say is that when you are here, stuck here in the we want to be together, but we cannot make it work, then there's certain things that you need to do to actually get into the receiving zone. Yeah. So this is for people who are not interested in my classes. So I have a series of master classes coming up that you can join. They are very affordable because I want a lot of people to be able to be in them. You will be able to step by step find out where you are. I will create a lot of diagrams and a lot of questionnaires, self-reflection questionnaires and movies so that you can find your pattern and that you don't think that there's something wrong with you, but that you can see that the human initiations in love, they are difficult. Yeah. But some of you might think, no, actually, I want to actually really know what it is. Then what I'll do is I will actually send you a questionnaire and then we can go through an audit and that will be on the phone or online. So basically, this is what I can offer. But if you're thinking, I want to crack this code. I want to rewire myself. I want to learn the habits of actually rewiring myself and not repeating these patterns. I have a masterclass series. It's coming up. I'm thinking it will be between uh, 2 months to 3 months, because that is when you can learn a lot. And if you want to know more, you can go to this specific school community. It is free to join, and then you will get updates when the masterclass series is ready. So basically, the masterclass series is that I will teach a certain thing, but when I'm teaching it, you can also ask questions. So it's very interactive, and then basically you can learn from each other, because this is really when you see these invisible patterns, you will actually see how much depth there is in all the dramatic romances in our love life, and how the archetypes show up and how our consciousness is gets distorted. So I would say, if I were you, I would say do the masterclass series, because it's going to be fun. You're going to learn so much. And I will have an offer anyways for the people that are joining for 3 months, because if you join the 3 months masterclass, you will know so much, and then your audit will be much more clear. You will know so much yourself that you can actually ask me better questions. So that is what I would recommend. And yeah, I hope that this was inspiring. I think, a lot of you will think, oh, what are the initiations to go in the receiving zone? I want to honor the time, but no, definitely, if you're in the master class, you will find out what it is, because the David Hawkins scale, if you could study that already, you will understand how actually people having to initiate the initiations to go from courage to acceptance can take years. It can take decades, because we're talking about trusting life. We're talking about forgiving the worst of the worst, accepting the worst of the worst, understanding that maybe everything is working for us, even if it's painful for us, and also accepting that even when we do our best, our heart can be broken, we can be scammed, people can betray us. So if you know the initiations that are happening to go to acceptance, and that when people cross that threshold, they literally go into the zone of miracles, that is when you're aligned with your soul. When this speaks to you, when you think, wow, I'm very curious. Yeah, you can join the school community, or you can message me and I can send you the link, and then you'll find out what the price is. And it's going to be a super fun, interactive series. You will learn a lot. And definitely you will get your money's worth. And probably you'll also be able to stop yourself from repeating these painful patterns over and over and over again. So I'm now going to stop sharing. Uh, Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Um, if you have questions that are not too personal, you can ask it. Maybe ask it for a friend or something. But because this is going on YouTube, I don't want people to like share personal stuff that they feel embarrassed about. But did it make sense? Did it make sense what I was sharing? I mean, I was obsessed about the Jungian stuff, and now I can see how it connects with the David Hawkins scale and law of attraction and all of that. Yeah, please feel free to unmute yourself if you want to share something. Do you have feedback? Are all of you confused? Yeah. So,
I really loved your session, and of course we know each other from way back, so
and you've seen all my drama in love, right?
yes,
Oh my
I've been a
God.
witness.
You've been a witness. I have such goosebumps. So she is one of my university friends. Yeah, and she saw me when I was 49. Like she still looks like when I met her. We were in our 20s. But so basically at 49, I cracked the code. But you can see how much pain that was, yeah. And working on yourself, paying all the money and going to the courses and still like, what am I not getting? What is this? But I can say that when Elle and I cracked it, and I literally have a slide where I explain the differences between me and Elle. Elle is 14 years younger than me. She loves ayahuasca. She loves breath work. She is a yoga teacher. She always wanted kids. She is introverted. She's completely different than me. And then I am like, oh, you cannot bribe me to do ayahuasca. I hate yoga. I'm so different than her. And we just did the clearing work. So we believe that when two people at the same time can manifest the same thing, heal the same thing, then you're working on a level that is not about personality. Then you're working on an archetypal consciousness level. And the things, so all the clients that we work with, and we have a lot of testimonials, it is really about turning around invisible habits that people have that keep them stuck. There are habits that we have that make us go unconscious, that make us go boom, back in the program, as Dr. Joe would say. And the things that we were experimenting with was a synthesis of all the best teachers, Dr. Joe, Abraham Hicks, reality transurfing, David Hawkins, but also the science of getting rich. We literally, we're modeling the most successful people like Rhonda Byrne, and I'm modeling the master manifestors. I'm studying those videos. I'm like, what are they doing? I want to be like this person because I really believe we're unlimited. And I know that every struggle that we go through is a gift. I am so grateful to all these men that ghosted me, cheated on me. I even had I didn't have a boyfriend that betrayed me for money, but I had a trading mentor that stole all my money. I am even grateful for him. Why? Because I can see the level of consciousness in me, what was going on with me
Mm.
when I didn't trust myself and I gave all my money to somebody else. That is absolutely the symbol of giving your power away, you know? And so there's so many levels of self-betrayal, self-abandonment that we do, and life has to bring us these angels to wake us up. Yeah. So yeah, did I inspire you because you do know me for so many years and you
Yeah,
as
well,
well, Karina.
yeah, it was so wonderful to see you doing this because I hear about it, of course, sometimes when we meet or when I follow you on Facebook, and now I actually feel and experience it myself, and it's exactly what you say. Like I've done loads of work and I'm a coach myself, but in this field, I'm still not,
Yeah.
having the life I want, and I
Your
also
soulmate man is like waiting for you. If you know like this is the thing. One day I will ask Thomas to sit next to me and tell you guys what he did to manifest me. The timing was crazy. Like I have a lot of Instagram posts that I have goosebumps now. They're all about your soulmate is already waiting for you. You just have to, just do a few more steps because I think the people that are going to come to me, they're not going to be the I want to talk about my parents for 3 more years type of people.
no,
Like we're literally saying, I'm so grateful for my
it's
parents. They were the perfect parents.
not that.
And now I want to elevate, I'm going to heal this pattern for my whole family, like all the generations behind me. And nobody is stopping us. Nobody is stopping us. Yeah. So
So I'm very curious to hear and know more. Yes.
the thing is with me, I really feel I'm guided because my guidance is very strong and they will not even like they won't even stop my angels. And so they really told me make it a fun course with movies and with songs where you literally can see which level of consciousness and maybe even like all these dating coaches, right? Like I love Matthew Hussey, but the types of question he's like asking, which level of consciousness is it, right? Like, people are still seeing dating and manifesting love as like a tactics. It's not about tactics. It's like understanding, seeing beyond the tactics. Where is this question coming from? If I'm still obsessing about Mr. Unavailable, is it a tactic to manifest him back? Like, Like seriously, so this is why I was like, I'm not gonna be, this is not dating tactics. This is really about understanding that the world is so much more beautiful than you can imagine, so much more mysterious than you can imagine. And if you guys know the synchronicities that happen with mid and L, it's like crazy. It's like, and I see it also with my clients manifesting jobs, like things like that. And also my brother, who I coach to manifest a job when everybody in banking was fired in Hong Kong a few years ago. I mean, like I see it over and over again. If something isn't working in our lives, it's like a wake-up call from the universe saying, you need to tweak it a little bit more. So much more is happening, waiting for you on the other side, you know? It's not a, oh my God, I failed. No, you need to tweak it a little bit more. And if you have a map and you know what things not to do, and you need to, you know, you just need to train yourself and be clear about how amazing the universe is, then, you know, definitely you can change it around.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. So, Hinda, I know that I don't know what you knew about the anima, animus, inner, you know, the inner lover that we carry within, that we project into people. Did you know about that? Did you know about the David
Oh,
Wilkins scale?
yeah, I know that the scale and well, I didn't study it, but I worked with it quite a lot in the last year, mostly in
Yeah.
and the animus anima, that was new to me, but what you're telling about it, that is something I do recognize, and I can see it in my own patterns. So I know a lot of my own patterns also because as a coach, I also work with patterns. So I can
Yeah.
see I'm on a level, I think, that I can see the patterns of the men I feel
Attract.
attracted to, and then my mind says, "Oh, but I can also see his pattern, and that is not fitting," or and I can see what it does in myself. So
Yeah.
there's quite some consciousness already happening, but not enough to not go into the trap of, wanting a man that I know deep down is not good for me. That is
Oh,
still
yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also seeing what I do myself in order it to fail. And I
Yeah.
also see that.
Yeah.
So I see a lot, but now I feel like this is the last click to really make it on another level.
Yeah.
And that is why I contacted you. And then it was like a few days ago, you
Yeah, it
gave
was
an
very
opener. So
interesting.
it was
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah,
everything in divine timing.
exactly.
I know, Karina, you know, you and I, we studied with Tony Robbins, you know, and of course, Tony Robbins was also so insightful to me around how we are actually as women a little bit crazy. Like I could see my crazy eights everywhere. So
Oh,
crazy
yeah.
eights is a pattern in women where they get really angry and they go like they call it the storms of the women, and I call it hormonal, whatever. Like drama queen and little girl, like drama queen or little girl, temper tantrums and crying and yelling and whatever. And then the other side, they go to a little bit depression. And he talks about that we have strategies that keep us in the crazy eight. And I was there for years, but when once Tony told me about it, I was like, I'm not going there anymore. I don't want to be in a crazy eight, you know. So that is another pattern. But I don't know, Karina, you know, I'm studying every day. Was there anything new to you, or did you have any new insights that you didn't know
Oh,
about yet?
lots of things that are not familiar to me
Okay.
as concepts,
Yeah.
but um, I recognize the feeling,
The
you know?
feeling.
Yes, and yeah, so that was interesting to me. Also, the animus anima, I really don't know what you're really talking about there. I never studied that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's all strange concepts to me. But the scale, I found that very interesting. And
Yeah.
I really recognize that dynamic in my own life,
Yeah.
how you can be stuck in struggle, um, and how you can grow to the higher level.
Yeah.
and
The how is
then
the big
and then
question. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and but it takes a lot. Yeah, it takes practicing it
Rewiring
and
ourselves.
and getting into the flow of it.
Yeah.
And then you get to the awareness where you get to acceptance. And so I could really feel the dynamic that you were
Yeah.
explaining, and I can see how that has played out in my own life,
Yeah.
both the upside and the downside,
Yes.
where I've had years in deep struggle where I was like, how the hell did I ever end up here? And you feel like I need to get back
After
up
all this
there.
work, like
Yes,
especially when you do so much
also.
work and then you blame yourself, so you even feel less worthy because you've done so
Oh
much
yeah,
work. You feel like the
yeah.
biggest loser because you're at the family dinner. Nobody has ever done any therapy. They're all happily married, and you're the only one that's not happily married. You're the what the F? And this is
No,
exactly this,
because
but
you're gonna go deeper. That's why.
some of
Mm-hmm.
us are the healers in the family from
Yes,
because
yes.
like my brother was happily married immediately. Like, literally the
Mm-hmm.
psychic that told me that I was gonna be in the deathbed, missing the big love, immediately told him when he would meet his wife on the second reading. In this specific month, you will meet your mirror image, and he literally met her. The psychic told him when he would meet her, what was the circumstance, and how they would recognize each other, and that exactly happened. So.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how accurate a psychic is. Sometimes it's like the Matrix, where the Oracle said to Neo, "I'm sorry, kiddo, you're not the one." But actually you are the one. Do you see what I mean? You had to hear that. You had to hear that. Everything you hear has to be the exact thing you have to hear, and you still are the one that determines the end outcome. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, and I've been very sick. I guess you know that. And a few years ago, I was finally ready to accept death.
yeah.
And then I found out I was actually in what do you say, misdiagnosis. So I finally got the right treatment after all those years, but it took years to get all this medicine to be in the right windows with everything. And so now I'm starting rehabilitation. But last year, the whole year was just breathing,
Mm.
and um, yeah, it's been really tough. So I can see where I am on that scale.
Yeah,
Like
for
I
help.
really want to go up,
Yeah,
but I've been stuck in that lower vibration for a long time now. So yeah,
yeah,
um, yeah, like I said, you can sometimes be surprised on um, how you hit rock bottom again when you
yeah,
thought you were elevated so high,
yeah,
and you go all the way down again. Yes, but
yeah.
also recognize, like, yes, it's true. I remember that I made all those steps,
Yeah, yeah.
and I went quite high, but you can go down again. So
I do
that's
believe
that's
like
that's
when you look at me and
that's
Elle, when
lesson.
we met our men, it wasn't
Mhm.
like the challenges stopped. It was more like the challenges that came were had to do with our soul contracts, but they were it felt like you had somebody that was there that was supporting you. Like,
Yeah,
like for her, it would have been like, can I actually have a man that is not like an extra child? Can I have a man
right.
that's actually really going to be there for my children? And oh my God,
Yeah,
what
to
she
not
manifested
be a
was
single married mother.
exactly like,
Mhm.
but he is like such a supportive man. He's cooking, she has a freedom. They literally created the perfect life together. So both of them can work, both of them can work from home. And he's like, like also putting the children into bed and all of that, super stable. His parents are involved. And I have the same with my husband. My husband is my chef now. He's always cooking. And that's my love language, by the way. If a man cooks for me, that's love for
Ah,
me.
that's the
So,
first thing. Yes,
but we had challenges, but the challenges were not about us. They were more about us growing together. They were more about us, okay, now we have to grow, but not solo. Now you have to grow together. So for us,
right.
it was, for instance, financial, because my trading mentor scammed me of all my money. And I was like, what the F? And then, but because he was there, I was like, no, but I already won the jackpot. So I need to now define myself outside of the confines of money. And this is really, that was also in my
Mhm.
astrology, that was a big, that Pluto is in my financial house. So Pluto is underworld. Pluto is you're going to be raped. Literally, Pluto is the underworld and then it's going like a phoenix up. So because of what happened in my life, I can really see actually astrology is like a weather report. It tells you where you're going to have your challenges, but it doesn't mean that that it's a sentence. It just means you
Right.
will have to
Oh,
work harder in this area. You invited in more opportunities to go from basically breakdown to breakthrough.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how you need to see it, you know?
Yes, I found it very interesting to hear you describe the soul level love.
Yeah.
That's
Because
beautiful.
if we are not in alignment with our soul, because
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you, I know about Thomas, his pattern and his last his first relationship, the one where he basically was married for many, many years. But I can tell you, I was her. I was
Oh,
literally like her. And if
interesting.
so it would not have mattered if I met him 25 years ago. It would
Right.
have still been the same relationship as he had with another person because the patterns were the same. Didn't trust, didn't had a horrible negative animus, meaning the men, you cannot trust men. Like me and Elle had
Mm-hmm.
that. So this is why, hi Lisa. She woke up in Australia. You just missed it, but you can watch recording. But I'm just saying that if you meet your soulmate person in the
Mm-hmm.
wrong consciousness, you're still gonna be
Yes,
doing
of
those
course.
lessons together. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Hi, Lisa. How are you? This is very encouraging, Lisa. I have here one of my Tony Robbins peers, Karina. So she was there when we were studying Tony Robbins and all the interventions and all the people that were like blaming each other and all of that. And we learned how to pattern interrupt people. Hinda knows me from university. She's seen all the drama in my love life. And they were both like, wow, Angelique turned this around. This is crazy. And they really, really felt very, very encouraged. And that was also the objective of my presentation is to inspire you guys, not to make you guys think, oh my God, like, oh, can we ever do it? But actually to see if I can do it. And, if Elle and I can do it and we did it at the same time, then there is a universal pattern underlying how we can change reality or how we can by changing ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. No, it's
Yeah.
cool. Very cool. Yeah, it's good having someone with two people with such long history and then me like just a couple of years. So that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, but Hinda and Karina have never worked with me before. Like Hinda is a friend, Karina and I are peers, so they've never been in my classes. Lisa has been in my classes. She has been in a 6-month program where I literally had to explain things like Tony Robbins stuff, but also consciousness and all of that. Could you share a little bit about what your experience was in the group dynamic and the classes and
Yeah, I really appreciated the group dynamic actually, because, usually, oh, I've done a lot of stuff and, I'm part of a big group of, dispenser people or Martini people or whatever. But having our group of about 6 to 8 people was really good, and for 6 months consistently. I'm still in touch with Ushi a lot. We're very
Yeah.
close. But yeah, I came across new things I hadn't really come across before, like Esther and Abraham and all that kind of thing, and
Yeah.
some principles there that which I still think about today, of course, and very practical. Like we had weekly things to do, and that made me accountable to just keep up with the material. There was a lot of material, and I sometimes, I think I said to you, I feel kind of bad sometimes. Like I don't have time to listen to it all, but it's like the fear of missing out. There was so much stuff, but I could only do what I could do. But yeah, and it was, you explain things really obviously really practically put complicated concepts into easy to understand and applicable ways, how to make it applicable. Um, yeah, it was good. Yeah, obviously it was really good. And also having the group and these regular little meetings or whatever we were doing kept the work in my mind all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
So, that was when I was living in Paris for that time and all those things were happening because I had it in my mind all the time, was applying
Yeah.
it all the time. And so I had all those lovely synchronicities happen and,
Beautiful,
things.
fun manifestations. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah.
that was great. Mm.
Yeah. No, and would you say now, Lisa, looking back, that actually effortless instant manifestations and miracles and synchronicities is actually a skill you can learn, a skill you can train
Definitely.
yourself into? Yeah. Yeah. I
Mm,
truly believe that. This is not like first I was like, oh, there's a mystery here. What's so special with this person? So Dr. Joe says, actually you have living in a state of survival, which is under 200, when people are just in the program, everything is happening to me, or living in a state of creation. And for the longest time, I was like, what is living in a state of creation? I didn't even understand it. Even though I had the David Hawkins scale, I still didn't get it. So sometimes
mm,
it's like you need like some kind of, I don't know, what is it, marinating time or something for it to
mm,
click in your head. And now I really get it because for me it's now like I actually because I can actually tell you what you're doing because you can tell yourself what you're doing.
mm,
It's not
mm,
rocket science. You can see
mm,
why certain people manifest the dream home, manifest the yacht, manifest winning the lottery because they're in a certain level of consciousness. So for me, that is the big mystery, right? Can we all manifest the lottery, all in our own bubble? And like, no, it's very interesting. And but what I think is very beautiful is that not getting caught up in the what is and thinking that that defines you or that that is the limitation, you know like Hinda, you might not know the Dr. Joe Dispenza world, but
No, I do know. I know him for I think eight
oh,
years
okay,
or so, and
okay,
I have never read books, but I have followed a lot of his stuff, and now for a couple weeks I'm doing really every morning. I do his meditation, and I did that earlier, but then I always stopped doing it. So
yeah,
it's like with
yeah,
breaks during the years, and now restarted again.
okay,
Quite determined. So.
yeah, that is the spirit, that's the spirit.
So I'm doing it now for a couple of
Yeah.
months and I really love it. Yeah. So
so what
no, I do know. Yeah.
So what I wanted to say, Hinda and Karina, they know the difficult housing situation in Holland.
Oh,
And I just found a Dr. Joe Dispenza Dutch student who was very stressed out about renting a house because she had a divorce. So she literally opened up about I was just divorced. I had to rent this house and there were 60 people at the same time for this house, which is really normal for Holland. And then she just manifested, she meditated on it. She saw it happening before it happened. And then she missed the first house because she literally looked up the house on the website and she saw, okay, here's the kitchen, here's this and that. And then she literally manifested the same house in a few numbers down and cheaper. But she didn't do it from attachment. And we coming from Holland, knowing how difficult it is here in Holland, we're like, oh my God, of course.
only 60.
Sorry?
Only 60. I mean, can
Yeah,
be
only
200
60.
or
Sometimes it's
more.
200.
Yes, yes.
200 people. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very
So
difficult.
And that is about, so basically in the housing market you could say, oh, there's scarcity. We can really see there's scarcity in
Mm-hmm.
the housing market in Holland. Or we can look at economy and say, oh my God, something's going on with gold, something is going on with the with the currencies. I should be in panic. But I also believe, what people say, like Paul Proctor, you create your own economy. You create your own economy. And also this exactly the same with dating. Don't look at the dating statistics. Don't look at so many married men, so many men cheating, so many women unhappy. Actually, single women are the most happiest.
Yes.
Blah blah blah, all of that. If you really have this deep desire, I would love to heal this. Not because I need it, because none of us needed it. Me and Elle, we were living the life as single women. Come on, man. But we were like, how come my friend is getting married and she's so happy? And look at that person. Why can't I have it? Maybe it's because I need to step up. Yeah. And so I really believe that your soulmate is looking for you. If you're wanting to be with this person is looking for you, and they are like, Thomas was on a dating website for like 9 months in Holland. He only had one date with another woman, didn't click. He literally said, I couldn't find anybody. There was nobody. And I was like, how is that possible? You're so handsome. You're so super good looking. How is it possible that even you can't find anybody? Then who is going to find anybody? But literally, I think the way that David Guillaume, or, in Kabbalah, they would say, the universal algorithm didn't put him in front of other people. And then and so basically it is so beautiful how it can happen. So, and the same with manifesting jobs or manifesting opportunities, it's the same thing. We have to be ready. We have to say, okay, universe, bring it on. I'm going to be a channel. And now the universe is speaking loudly. You're going to teach this. So, and yeah, maybe the first months will be a small group, but I will be running ads, so the groups will be getting bigger and bigger. But I love to experiment with how am I going to teach it, and how are the students not just getting it from, okay, seeing it in pop culture, seeing it in their own lives, but also getting the practices to turn it around. So I want a real, what is it, lived, embodied, what is it, experiential course. It's not just going to be read this book, watch this. No, you have to do this, do something different, you know. And that is what I want to create. Yeah. So, anyways, if you're interested, send me a message. I need to create I actually have the sales page, but I just have to ask my web designer to hook it up to my thing and put in a stripe. And he's on holiday now in Italy. He's from Australia, Lisa. All my developers were in Australia. I don't know why, but they were the only ones I could trust.
Yeah, we're very trustworthy people.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like all the other ones, I couldn't trust them.
Because
So
they're
yeah,
down to earth.
they're down to earth. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no. My friend Byron is very beautiful. And
Mhm.
but before that, I had another Aussie developer. Yeah. Anyways, I hope you enjoy the recording. Anybody watching this, and I will see what would be a fun next masterclass to run to help people and engage them. Do you guys have any ideas of things that you would love to know? Would you love to know what's going on in the receiving zone, or the initiation in the power zone where people get stuck, why they can't go up to the receiving zone? Or are there any other ideas that you think, oh,
Oh,
uh,
you said something about once you're at 350 with acceptance, that's where it starts. So
yeah,
I would also love to hear a bit more about that part. So
yeah, yeah,
when the real deal is what does that mean when we're talking about
yeah,
acceptance? Because well, I've really studied that in many courses like aanvaarden.
yeah,
What that does that really mean? But I'm also curious about your perspective in this specific area.
yeah.
What it
Yeah, yeah, because I
consists
lived
of.
it. I lived it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
especially acceptance is like it's a because there's several initiations between courage and acceptance, and they're not easy ones because, for instance, to go from courage to The next one, neutrality, 250, from 200 to 250. 250 is trust. I couldn't go to trust. I was like, I'm not trusting. I'm not trusting. No way I'm trusting. And I would literally manifest men coming to me who literally said things like me, Angelique, I really have feel this amazing connection with you. And they were on my vision board and everything. I will tell you all, I will spill the tea, everything that I manifested and the types of men that I would manifest. But before I reached 250, I literally manifested the man. I wanted a home, so I was manifesting having a home, but then this guy came into my life and it was his home. He lives somewhere in Australia, Lisa. He's like a music producer or something. And he literally had the home that I was walking in. And I was like, oh, but I thought it was my home. Apparently, it's his home. We had a huge spiritual connection and chemical connection, but he wanted a polygamy. And he wanted to visit me in Bali while I was there. I was like, no, 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 no. So literally my lesson about trust, I just it showed me what I had to learn. Like, no, there's no fucking way I'm gonna share a man with any woman, although he was honest about it. He was honest about it, and I still didn't trust it. So there's so many things you can learn from, maybe my anecdotes about how I understood trust and how I then was initiated into trust, like when the scammer took all my money. How did I learn to trust when I lost all my money, right? So this is literally, sometimes if you don't want to learn it, life will give you another lesson. But if you know where you are, then you also know what lessons you're learning. And what I also know is from Kabbalah now and what I've seen in my classes, soulmate is not a person. Soulmate is a energy. So in my classes where we saw a lot of people turn around their marriage, where husbands wanted to get a divorce and then the woman did the work and then the husband came back without saying anything because they were literally becoming a different person. The soulmate energy could come into her and then it could go into the husband. And so the other download that I had the other day was, and also this is also according to Kabbalah.
So can I interrupt you? So you want to
Yeah.
say that people can become soulmates
If you
or
if you have
already
that in
in
yourself.
an already existing relation
Yeah.
which was on another level, they can upgrade their energy
Yes.
level to become
Yes.
soulmates.
Yeah, and I have goosebumps because we've seen so many of these weird things happen in our game in 2020 that we thought, what's going on? And when I studied Kabbalah in 2025, it's like, oh God, this makes sense. But in one of the channelings that I had, because I do believe I channel, because I don't think these thoughts normally. So imagine that you've had a beautiful person, a soulmate love die. Yeah, I have a client that had a soulmate love die. Literally, at one point, I had a clear insight. If you really want it, that soulmate love can come into another person and you can meet them. Because in Kabbalah, they say these soulmate energies can come into animals and can come into another person, but it first has to land in you, you
Mm,
know? And this doesn't mean that you need to hope that it comes into a specific person because, again, that's attachment and neediness and codependency. You have to let it go. But of course, what we also know from law of attraction is Abraham, talking about you can leave the relationship, you can leave your job, but you take yourself with you. So if you don't clean it up, you
exactly.
can go and date 20 other people or go to 20 other employers and still have the same issues. So what we saw in our game with all these different people who were complaining about their husband, he left me, or I want to divorce him every day, literally when they became aligned with their soul, they fell in love again with their husband, or their husband came back. And or even what I've seen in with like parents, like my father changed. He's a different person. Yeah, and that is changing the box, according to Dr. Joe. That is changing the box. That is literally there are multiple timelines. It's according to us which timeline we're going to go into. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So, anyways, I'm not gonna, I know it's almost 11 o'clock in Holland. Some of you might need to work. And yeah, whatever it is that you're dealing with, whether it's health or soulmate love or just understanding more of the model, you're more than welcome to join the course. Um, so it will be fun, and I hope to see you there. Also, those of you watching the recording. Thank you, everybody. And I'll have a
Thank
tea
you
with
so
you,
much.
Hinda, or lunch or whatever.
Yes, yes.
Bye
Bye
See
bye.
bye.
you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thank you so much.